Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Beer versus Ivy, episode number 10. As always, I'm your co-host, Simon Saul, brought to you with my amazing co-host, Jackson Gross. Jackson, it's Monday. How are we doing?
I'm doing pretty good. It has been an insane week, to say the least. Just been grinding everything between my job at Walgreens, my tutor job, stuff with the Bucks. I think last week between the Portland game I covered, the Miami Heat game, and the preview I wrote for the Bulls game, I think I had like 8 or 9 articles in that week alone. So, yeah, no, it's been good. Outside of seeing Marquette lose to Wisconsin again for the third year in a row, other than that, it was a really good week. Just been trying to enjoy this time. Holidays are getting really, really close, and it's an exciting time for baseball too. Lots of rumors going around, and just can't wait to see for these rumors to finally be acted on. But how are you doing, Cy?
I'm in your same boat. I've also been very, very busy. I had a basketball-filled weekend. Went to the Bradley versus Indiana State game Saturday afternoon. Bradley lost, sadly, and one of our star players went down with looking like a pretty gruesome ankle injury. So that was unfortunate. But then afterwards, I went straight up to Chicago to catch my first ever NBA game. Bulls versus Pelicans. Kobe White dropped the season high, 32 points. Went absolutely crazy. The sold out United Center, shockingly, was chanting his name. Zion is a beast. That man is huge. He is just crazy. Good seats, free seats. Just no complaints. Also read up a recap on the Bradley game and read up a Colonel's article earlier this week about what's next for our team. But it's Monday. We're here to talk some baseball. So I'm doing good.
Yeah, it's a good time. Yeah, I mean, it's funny enough, like the last game I went to for the Bulls before like COVID happened, it was like February 2020. They were playing the Suns, and obviously before they got Chris Paul and all that kind of stuff. And so I think Kobe White had like 30 something points. Devin Booker had like 30 or 40. So it's cool to see we both gone to games where Kobe White has just gone off for absolutely no reason.
Season high too. And it was a close game like the whole time. Like they're going back and forth in that first half, and eventually second half they pulled away. And this is a Bulls team with no Zach LaVine. Alex Caruso didn't play at all the second half, which was kind of head scratching. Illini's own Ayo Dosunmu, I think that's how you say his name. He popped off too. He had like 12 or 13 points too. Like Zach LaVine's getting all hyping up his boys on the sideline in his little street clothes, knowing he's about to get traded. Like it was just crazy. And also this is just super off topic. I didn't know Cody Zeller was on the Pelicans. And
Cody Zeller's on the Pelicans?
Cody Zeller is the backup center on the Pelicans. And that was really head scratching to me. Because I was like, who is this middle-aged bald man with goggles on the floor? And I was like, oh wait, that's Cody Zeller. And I think Andre Drummond like dunked on him or something, or like got like a steal off of him, and it was hilarious. But we're not here to talk basketball. We're here to talk baseball.
Yeah, and we have a very special guest who's going to be joining us right about now. I met this guy back in April. He's been absolutely fantastic, a great friend and mentor, the radio voice for the Kansas City Royals, Mr. Jake Eisenberg. Jake, welcome to Beer versus Ivy.
Thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, this is beer versus Ivy versus fountains, I think. So we can do a little special edition. How's that sound?
That sounds amazing to us.
Yeah, I cannot thank you enough for hopping on with us. It's an exciting time. Obviously, winter meetings are going on. The Royals have been really, really active in the trade and free agent market, but I'm going to hand it off to Cy with his first couple of questions.
All right. First question I got for you, Jake, is what is your like background? Like, who are you? How'd you get yourself into sports and getting yourself to the position with the Royals?
Sure. So I grew up in Port Washington, New York, which is a suburb on the North Shore of Long Island. Went to the University of Maryland, and that's really where I started doing a lot of play-by-play broadcasting with the student radio station there, WMUC Sports. I worked for BTN Student U, which was a tremendous experience. Did a lot with the baseball team there. We founded and kind of run an organization called Maryland Baseball Network that did a lot with the baseball team specifically, kind of traveling with them and being their kind of flagship play-by-play broadcast. And that's where I got into baseball primarily for the first time. Did a summer in the Cape Cod League with the Chatham A's and did baseball every day for the first time there. And then was lucky enough to get a job in minor league baseball with the Brooklyn Cyclones, not too far from where I grew up in Port Washington. So after a summer with them in 2017, it was a season with the Winston-Salem Dash as their assistant broadcaster in 2018. Then a season with the Richmond Flying Squirrels as their assistant broadcaster in 2019. So from high A in Winston-Salem to double A in Richmond. And then was fortunate enough to get the job with the Omaha Storm Chasers as their lead broadcaster. That was supposed to be entering the 2020 season, but obviously it didn't really turn out that way. So after a brief hiatus because of the canceled minor league season, got out to Omaha in 2021, returned to Omaha in 2022. And that season I kind of bounced back and forth between the Storm Chasers and filling in for the New York Mets, which was my big league debut and the team that I grew up rooting for. And that was a dream come true just to be in that space and learn from all those people. And then that kind of dovetailed into the position that I currently have, which is as one of the broadcasters for the Kansas City Royals. Could not be a better match, could not be more lucky or grateful to be in this spot. And after a great first season, maybe not so much in terms of record, but in terms of experience for sure. Really looking forward to 2024.
Wow, that is like you've been everywhere. It seems like that is just so
Just a little
cool.
bit, but that's not, I wouldn't say that that's a unique thing. I think that if you talk to broadcasters across Major League Baseball, there's no singular path to get to the big leagues in a broadcast booth. The only thing that tends to be similar is that you have a lot of people that find themselves in a lot of different places before they get to one place for hopefully a good chunk of time. And I mean, there are people that will look at it that are outside of the industry and be like, oh, is it kind of like a player where you move up within the same organization? And that's true maybe to some degree. It certainly worked out for me with the Royals getting called up, kind of like a player, AAA to the big leagues. That is traditionally not the case. And you do find yourself in a bunch of different places. And I think that's what makes baseball in this journey specifically so rewarding, is that you meet so many different people in so many different leagues. And that's not just broadcasters, but players and coaches and other baseball people that by the time, if you're lucky enough to get to this level, that you do get to this level, you have a lot of contacts everywhere. And it's kind of like 1 or 2 degrees of separation.
Wow, that is cool. And I think it's really I personally think that like that whole going through the minor league path is super cool. Starting in high A, moved up double A, moved up triple A, and then now you're in the big leagues. Like you're just like a player almost.
Yeah, and it doesn't always happen like that either. I mean, there's no linear path within minor league baseball. It's not set up that you go from high A to double A to triple A to the big leagues. There are tremendous broadcasters in high A that go right to the big leagues. There are tremendous broadcasters in double A that go right to the big leagues, so on and so forth. So it doesn't have to be quite that linear of a ladder. It's just kind of the way it worked out for me.
Super, super cool. So next question. So the Royals, they weren't the greatest team this year, record-wise, but they definitely had some good moments. So what would you say was your favorite moment that you got to broadcast this year?
Well, I'll start by saying that, 56 and 106 is not what anybody expects, nor what everybody wants. And I'll put on my biased glasses a little bit and tell you that the team that we watched throughout the season, first off, it changed tremendously from April until the end of September. I think the second half team and the players that you saw getting a lot of the bats and a lot of the innings was pretty different than what we saw at the beginning of the season. That said, I don't think that the team we saw at the tail end of the season was a 106 loss team. That said, your record is, or you are what your record says you are, sort of thing. So, like, sure, there is some part of that, but Pythagorean win-loss was a little bit better than what the Royals wound up with. There were a lot of close games that the Royals wound up blowing a lead or coming up just short. And I think you turn some of those specific losses into wins, and you look at a pretty different team. As far as favorite moments, right now Major League Baseball has been counting down their top 100 moments, and there have been some Royals plays included in there. The one that sticks out to me that I think is going to stick out, not just from this past season, but going forward for a while, is Bobby Witt Jr.'s walk-off grand slam. I mean, that is the moment of the season for me. Against Yohan Duran, 102-mile-an-hour sinker in on the hands that he just yanks over the left field fence. I mean, first off, walk-off grand slam, that's pretty cool just to begin with. But the fact that it's Bobby Witt Jr. in that moment against an all-star closer, against a division opponent, that's a pretty special moment, and was pretty fortunate to have the call for that one.
Wow. Seeing the face of your franchise do something like that, diehard fan, casual fan, doesn't matter who you are, you're going to remember those big moments. And I know Bobby Witt is going to remember that because it's not every day you hit a grand slam, nonetheless, a walk-off grand slam.
If I'm not mistaken, so that was definitely his first walk-off hit. If I'm not mistaken, it might have been his first major league grand slam as well. So it was kind of a 2-in-1 thing. But what was kind of cool about it, looking back, is at the time, so his second half of the season was otherworldly. He got off to a little bit of a slow start in April and May. So on that date, it was July 28th. So it was about a week or so after the All-Star break, and he had carried over a really strong June and was really starting to become that superstar player, but it hadn't taken off quite yet in the way we saw in the month of August. It was still a question of, is this going to be sustained, or is this a hot couple of months, or what, how's the rest of the season going to go? And that was, I would say, one of his first true signature moments as a big leaguer. But I would say that even though he carries himself and is, one of the young superstars of this game, I don't know that he'd really cemented that on the field at that moment in time quite yet. And it was really from then on that he went on this tear, both against the Twins in that series and then against the Mets in the following series, and then continued it on the road against the Phillies, where he became the first player to go 20-30 in back-to-back seasons, their first 2 seasons in baseball history. He continued that in Boston, and then it was like, okay, this is what we expect now every single day from this player that you hope to build around.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Speaking of Bobby Witt, obviously he had an incredible season, but so did Cole Ragans after getting traded over to you guys over to the Royals. Just talk about what it was like. You talked about a little bit to see the rise of Bobby Witt throughout the season, and then what it was like to see Cole Ragans go from a guy who had an over 5 ERA with the Rangers to sub 3 with the Royals.
Yeah, Cole was an awesome addition. And, when that trade got made, so that trade came through officially, it was about 5 or 10 minutes before we went live for our TV broadcast that night. It was June 30th. And so, we went live basically, hey, the Royals have made a trade. Aroldis Chapman has gone to the Rangers, and the Royals have gotten back Cole Ragans and Rony Cabrera. And Rony Cabrera being, a Dominican Summer League outfielder, it's not super on the radar yet, but a guy with a ton of potential and did have a great season. But of course, all eyes are on Cole Ragans and what he might be. And then we saw in his Royals debut, he put together just a terrific all-around start against a really tough opponent. Got called up as the 27th man for a doubleheader against the Tampa Bay Rays, which at the time was still the best offense in baseball, and had 5 really solid innings. And then he went back down to the minors for a little bit. He added that slider and then tweaked the grip a little bit, came back up, and just looked like an ace from there on out. There's no question about it. He was the best pitcher in the American League in the month of August. He was the American League pitcher of the month in August. You can make an argument he was the best pitcher across both leagues in the month of August, and that continued in September too. The strikeout numbers off the charts. The strikeout to walk ratio was great. He limited contact, limited damage, throwing upper 90s from the left side with, 2 really sharp breaking balls. I mean, he looks the part of an ace. And I think when you look at that trade and you wonder, well, like, why did the Rangers give this guy up? And how did the Royals turn him into this? I think it's a really interesting kind of test case for what the Royals have become and what they want to do. Because for starters, the Royals took a chance in signing Aroldis Chapman last offseason, coming away from the Yankees, a team that he kind of just left. And yeah, reports are differing in how that all shook out. But the point was, like, Aroldis Chapman was coming off a down year, and there were some questions about things in the clubhouse and elsewhere, and the Royals took a chance on signing him. And then the new pitching group with the Royals, led by Brian Sweeney, the new pitching coach, ostensibly fixed Aroldis Chapman and turned him back into the all-star closer that we've seen dominate this generation of baseball. And that made him into an incredibly high-valued trade piece with the Royals out of contention and a lot of teams looking to bolster their bullpen, as always happens. And I love the fact that JJ Picollo, in his first full season as a general manager, jumped the market and traded Chapman a month before the trade deadline and went out and got a massive asset, a young left-handed pitcher that's under team control for a while, that was with the Rangers and really like lit up the radar gun in spring training. I mean, he was throwing 92, 93 a couple of seasons ago. He came to spring training this year. He was lighting up the radar gun at the mid 90s. The command just wasn't there as much, and he was pitching out of the bullpen a little bit, which he had never done before. And because the Rangers had gone out and effectively bought themselves a new starting rotation with Jacob deGrom and Andrew Heaney and Nate Eovaldi and bringing back John Gray and having Mark, like, there wasn't a spot for Cole Ragans to start. And so he was either in the bullpen at the big leagues or starting at the AAA level. And sometimes that's just how it works, where, Cole Ragans didn't have necessarily a spot with the Rangers that he would have with the Royals, which is why the Rangers could look at it and say, you know what? We need a back end of the bullpen piece if we want to win a World Series. And we have an asset here that, while that might be a tremendous asset for us and we would love to have, the best trades, it hurts a little bit for both teams. And so the Royals got back a great piece. And yeah, the Rangers won a World Series. So I would say that both teams feel pretty good about how that trade went down.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's like the ultimate win-win trade, but also for a first-year GM to, if things continue to go to plan, get an ace in their first year, like a young foundational ace. I don't think you could ask for a better, first report card trade for new GM.
No, and again, I think it speaks to the front office's willingness to take a chance on Chapman to begin with, putting a pitching development team in place, because they were mostly, if not all, new this year, and Brian Sweeney and Mitch Stetter being promoted to the bullpen coach, and all of them working together. Zach Bove, the assistant pitching coach as well, and basically turning Aroldis Chapman into somebody who had the value to bring back a Ragans. Then making the trade for Ragans, that took some foresight from the front office, but then it didn't stop there, because they immediately developed Cole Ragans and worked on him with his breaking pitches and helped him with his slider grip. And he talked about how valuable that was to him. And so you see an investment and a risk taken in signing Chapman, developing Chapman, an investment and a risk taken in trading Chapman for Ragans. Who knows what other deals were out there, but that's the trade that the Royals and JJ Picollo made. And then developing Ragans into the ace that hopefully he fulfills. I mean, that's what we saw the back half of 2023, and hopefully that sustains through a full season in 2024. But yeah, I mean, like you're saying, Jackson, that checks all the boxes of what you want to see, not only from your front office, but from the player development staffs that you put in place.
Yeah, and pardon the pun, that's not only the big swing that JJ Picollo has been taking in terms of trading for pitchers. He's added Kyle Wright and Nick Anderson from the Braves. Also got Garrett Hampson as utility guy. Obviously, pitching was an issue last year outside of Cole Ragans, even with Zach Greinke on the staff. Just what are your thoughts on the additions to kind of help support Cole Ragans as potentially that ace heading into 2024?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think these moves are the super flashy headline grabbing Ohtani Bellinger moves that, Royals fans might want to see. But I think if you look beneath the surface, I think what you're seeing is raising the floor of the roster, which is absolutely something that every team needs to do, but especially a team that just lost 106 games. And you look at this specific trade, and you have to look at it in the context in which it occurred, and it was at the non-tender deadline, and you have a player in Jackson Kowar that had just not figured it out completely at the big league level, despite all of his success in college and in the minors, and might not have been a guy that broke camp with the team, and he was out of options. And so you start to look at, okay, what makes sense for our team, what makes sense for other teams. And the truth is, I believe in Jackson Kowar. I think that he has a chance to figure things out. I think that there's a much better chance that he figures things out elsewhere, and I really hope he does. I mean, I was there in 2021 when he was the best pitcher on planet Earth for his first 5 starts with a sub-1 ERA and got called up to make his big league debut. I have seen him dominate, and I'm sure that he can dominate again. I'm just not sure that it was going to happen in Kansas City. And so I think what the Royals did in bringing back Kyle Wright was a really interesting move. Now, Kyle Wright's not going to pitch in 2024. He underwent shoulder surgery in mid-October. And so you're basically trading for a potential starting pitcher in 2025, which I think is totally fine. I think that's a great move. Now, Kyle Wright had a tough 2023 season before he got hurt, but I mean, we shouldn't forget that he was one of the best pitchers in the National League just a couple of years ago. And so, yeah, you're rolling the dice a little bit, but I think you'd rather roll the dice on a potential starter, whether it's, a 2, 3, 4, or 5, or heck, maybe he surprises everybody and he's kind of a 1. I think you'd rather roll the dice with that than roll the dice with a starter turned reliever that just kind of hasn't figured it out for the most part in that spot. And I think sometimes, we see this a lot. Guys will go to a different organization and suddenly they're terrific. And then everyone looks back and says, well, hey, what gives? Like, why didn't we hold on to that guy? And I think that there's a change of scenery aspect to it that exists. And just because it works out in another place doesn't mean that it would have worked out the same way in the place that they were previously. And I think that's the case with Jackson. I think that's the case with some other players that you see move around too. So adding Kyle Wright in, bringing Nick Martinez in, a veteran bullpen presence who is injured a little bit last year, but has the strikeout to walk ratio and has the stuff that the Royals are looking for. I think anything that JJ Picollo and company can do to elevate the pitching side of things is a win. And then just quickly on Garrett Hampson, I mean, I think that speaks to raising the floor of the team. I mean, even if Garrett Hampson is, a utility player at most part, Garrett Hampson, for the most part of his career, is probably a really great role player on a playoff contending team. Has the chance to be a starting player on a really good team too, just hasn't necessarily gotten that chance yet or gotten there yet. But I mean, you're raising the floor of the players that you're bringing off the bench or having play not necessarily every day. And Garrett Hampson had a great season last year. Hit a little over 270, career high in on-base percentage. The speed is obviously there. The defensive versatility is there. I think that was a really good signing for the Royals and hopefully a sign of things to come.
Yeah, I always think that you see it all the time. Fans complain on Twitter like, "Oh, why didn't we get this superstar player so and so?" But you need to get those floor raisers. Like at least last year for the Cubs, it was Jamison Tyone and Trey Mancini and Tucker Barnhart just to raise up to what they were looking for. And I think the moves the Royals have made have pretty much gotten that to that point.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll look at the Cardinals briefly for a second because they signed Kyle Gibson, they signed Lance Lynn, and I think across the state, the best fans in baseball are going, what is this? We're hoping to sign Shohei Ohtani or Yoshinobu Yamamoto or some other really top flight starting pitcher. And I think if you look at it like that, I think it's a little bit of a flawed perspective. The Cardinals aren't necessarily done yet, but they've done things to bolster the back end of their rotation. Kyle Gibson was terrific last year. And Lance Lynn could be good again. Obviously, he had a down year, but that's going to happen. But I think, if I'm going to put a Cardinals fan hat on for a second and just issue a little perspective to them. If the Cardinals go out and sign an ace, then you're looking at signing Gibson and signing Lynn as outstanding depth moves. If the Cardinals don't do that and you want to complain, fine. I'm not going to tell you how to be a fan. But, the chronological order that things happen, ultimately, it doesn't matter. What matters is what the roster looks like on March 30th when these teams start playing the regular season. So, the fact that the Royals' first major signing of the offseason is Garrett Hampson isn't indicative of what the rest of the offseason will be. It just means that one of the boxes that they were trying to check has been checked. And the other boxes, depending on how the market shakes out with Ohtani and whoever else, like those boxes will get checked at a certain point, and how they get checked, that will be the true thing to judge, not the order in which those things happen.
Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. As a Cardinals fan and my flawed perspective, we filled our needs. We did what we needed to do. Now we can go out and do what we want to do, which is hopefully add a couple bullpen arms and trade some of our depth outfield pieces and sign or trade for an ace. But no, I agree. It matters what the roster looks like on March 30th, not what the roster looks like on December 4th.
Right, and the markets move at different rates. I mean, I think when you look at the starting pitcher market and you look at Blake Snell and Marcus Stroman and XYZ, I mean, those contracts in some ways are going to be dictated by what happens with Ohtani and what happens with the rest of the top of the free agent market. Whereas Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn, like their contracts might not be dictated by those as much. So there's a domino effect that has to happen before the big fish, so to speak, get caught and reeled in.
Yeah. Well, I gonna go on to my next question. So, as an announcer, names are difficult. Do you have like a certain like way or trick that you use to say difficult white players' names, like Masataka Yoshida or like some just obscure name?
Well, so luckily at the major league level, there are pronunciation guides that are available, and we talk to other broadcasters and their team's PR staffs all the time, and I'll always double check names that I'm not sure about or ones that I haven't heard before, or new ones before the first broadcast of a series, the first time we see them. A lot of that, you can do in spring training. Unless the teams are, in Florida, in which case you might have to wait a little bit. That was something that was a lot trickier in the minors because you didn't have the pronunciation apparatuses that you do at the major league level. And so you would talk to the other team's broadcaster who, in all likelihood, has talked to that player and said, "Hey, dude, how do you say your name?" Which, that's the way that I confirm, how players in the minors say their names. Be like, "Hey, how do you pronounce your name?" It's not a hard question to ask. There are some players, especially ones from Latin America, that sometimes will tell you the Americanized version of their name because that's what they've been conditioned to tell you. And sometimes you can tell when that's the case. And then I'll say to them, "Sure, but how does your mother say your name? How do your parents say your name? If your parents are tuning in, what would they want to hear?" And sometimes like that does get lost in the shuffle, especially in the lower levels of the minor leagues. And I hate when that happens. I mean, I'll tell you a quick story. I mean, in 2018, the Winston-Salem Dash had a bowling ball power hitter catcher named Yermin Mercedes, and he was great. He was bombastic, and he was hitting home runs left and right. And we were delivering these calls as Yermin Mercedes, another home run, so on and so forth. And then he makes his major league debut, and all of a sudden it's Yermin Mercedes, which it was the whole time. The whole time his name was and is Yermin Mercedes. But at the time in Winston-Salem, we didn't know that, and he didn't tell us that. And that's more our fault than it is his fault. Although I will say, like, one of the tricks that I had in the minors is we would have players record liners for the radio broadcast saying, this is Dash pitcher Dylan Cease, and you're listening to Dash Baseball on the Dash Baseball Network, so on and so forth. And we had Yermin Mercedes record one of those in which he said, "This is Dash catcher Yermin Mercedes," which is why we went with Yermin at the time. And so sometimes there's a disconnect that happens that way, and there's only so much you can do about it. I'll tell you that the only, I forget exactly who the player was, but it was somebody that I hadn't come across before, and they hadn't played in the big leagues yet. And I forget whether this was a big league game or a minor league game. All I know is I found a highlight clip on Twitter from a Mexican league game of this guy hitting a home run and listened to the announcer say his name. And that's how I determined, okay, this is how this guy's name is supposed to be pronounced. And I wish I could remember exactly who it was. But yeah, sometimes you dig in on the internet like that, and hopefully you can find a clip of somebody saying that player's name.
Wow, that's. I figured there would be something like a pronunciation guide in the big leagues, but I would think that you would have them in the minor leagues. So that's
you do for you put together a pronunciation guide for the players on your roster, and you hope that the other teams have the same thing. But sometimes the quality of those varies depending on where you are and who's putting it together, and the veracity of those also varies. Someone like me and the people that I work with, we went down and we talked to the players. That doesn't necessarily always happen. Or, maybe a guy just got called up and the other broadcaster PR staff has been running around and they haven't had a chance to talk to the guy yet and say, hey, how do you pronounce your name? And so sometimes it gets a little bit muddled, but ultimately it all gets figured out. I will say this: pronouncing names correctly is one of the most important things to me. It is the basic form of respect that you can show another person is pronouncing their name correctly, and there is really no excuse for not pronouncing a name correctly. The only reason that happens is laziness or a level of miscommunication that's easily avoidable. So, under no circumstance should a name be mispronounced on purpose, or just guessed. If you're going to guess, then find another way to not say the name if you're not sure.
I could not agree more. Pronunciation is key to every aspect in life, especially for a professional athlete who's trying to just make their name for themselves.
It goes for anybody.
Pronounce their name right.
Yeah.
All right, last question that I have. So, with your first full year in the big leagues as a play-by-play announcer, what has been your favorite stadium to call a game in?
I love this question, and it's impossible. I'm gonna leave Kauffman Stadium out for obviously biased reasons.
I was hoping you would leave it out.
Though I will say, as far as a broadcast booth location goes, the booth locations at the K, my bias aside, are the best in baseball. It is the best vantage point. It is the best, counter space. I'll say this, bias aside, calling a game at the K is phenomenal. The only one that rivals it in terms of vantage point is probably Angel Stadium in Anaheim, but that table's a little bit smaller and it gets a little bit warmer because it's open air. Anyway, favorite stadium. How about this? I'll give you a rough kind of top 5 that changes depending on the weather in that place or those other factors. But interestingly enough, a lot of my favorite ballparks are West Coast ballparks. I love San Francisco. Oracle Park is outstanding, incredible atmosphere, great history. It's unique with the brick wall, 24 feet high in honor of Willie Mays and McCovey Cove and the San Francisco Bay, and the Coke bottle slides and the big glove in left field. Like, it's iconic vista and ballpark to call a game, and that's always going to be at or near the top of my list. I love Petco Park in San Diego. They did a tremendous job with that ballpark. It's great to call a game in. The area around it with the Gaslamp District is terrific. If I had one qualm, the booth is a little bit narrow, but that's something that I'm okay with it. That's it. And the weather's always great. They do a good job with concessions. I mean, that's just a terrific ballpark, top to bottom. Went to T-Mobile Park in Seattle for the very first time this year. We were there in August, and the weather could not have been more perfect. So it was a weekend series. Julio Rodriguez was going off, sold out crowds. I think Richard Sherman threw out a first pitch to Ken Griffey Jr. So, you can imagine how hyped the people in Seattle were. The roof was open the whole time. Great vantage point, outstanding ballpark. Just walking around, really good city, especially when the weather's nice. I don't know what that ballpark's like with the roof closed. With the roof closed, maybe it's a little bit lower on my list, but I experienced it, I think, at its best possible ness. And so, yeah, that one's near the top of my list. And then I'll give you 2 others and then a bonus one. I love Camden Yards. That place is, it's terrific. Historically, the way it's crafted, going to the University of Maryland and going to Orioles games as a college student, that one has somewhat of a special connection. When I was in college, we used to go to Orioles games and we would work the concession stands there. And then donate the proceeds to charity. It was like a charitable thing that the Orioles did. They would work with groups from the local colleges. And so the first time that I actually, worked at Camden Yards, I was slinging hot dogs and nacho cheese and cracking open beers for people. And so it was cool to go back there for the first time this year and, call a game there in that capacity. And I love Target Field. I think that's a great ballpark too. Fantastic booth. Just really, really solid. And then the bonus one that I'll give you, very underrated. I think Comerica Park in Detroit is a very underrated ballpark. Also a great booth with a great vantage point, very spacious. But there's so much history that ballpark has. Wraparound concourse. When the weather's nice there and the crowds are big there, that place is is
It's
fantastic.
electric.
But when it's April and 27 degrees and like sleeting, it's not as pleasant, and that's the case for all these places. So yeah, I think in their most ideal conditions, those are probably that's probably my top 5 and 6 depending on the day. And then I'll give a shout out, of course, to Citi Field, because that's the ballpark that I grew up going to Shea Stadium, but grew up as much going to Citi Field as well, and calling games there. I think that's just a great ballpark to be a fan at. I'll say this: the broadcast booth there, the location, the size, it's maybe a step below Kauffman Stadium in terms of the vantage point, but that's still a ballpark that I hold near and dear.
Wow, I was not expecting Comerica Park to be on there.
It's a dark horse. You got to trust me on it. It's I think it deserves a lot more love than it gets. I think people think Detroit and they think of the weather first and foremost, and I don't know that people have really been to Comerica Park. The stone tigers that like loom over you when you walk, and it's such a cool. Let me tell you, they love tigers. I walked around the ballpark one day and like tried to count how many like stone carved tigers there were, and then realized that it was a waste of time because I was never going to be able to count that high. Like, they love tigers, and that's okay. Like, it's cool to have that as part of your ballpark. Like, the thing that I appreciate about ballparks is like when you walk around a place, you know where you are. When you walk around Comerica Park, you know you are at the home of the Detroit Tigers. I think they did a tremendous job capturing the centuries of history of that franchise. So yeah, I think that's a dark horse.
I got to visit the stadium over the summer for a Padres Tigers game. It was sunny out. It was absolutely beautiful, and
yeah, I recommend going during the summer.
A lot of Tigers.
I recommend going during the summer. Yeah,
you were not wrong about the Tigers.
Now I know I understand. Okay, mea culpa, because I understand who I'm talking to here. Busch Stadium is pretty solid, and Wrigley Field is also like it's a magical place. Going out there and like touching the ivy and calling a game there, it's second to none. Like, I remember the first time that I walked up the steps from the lower concourse, and you just see the scoreboard out in front of you at Wrigley. It's kind of like a goosebumps like baseball moment of like, whoa, I'm at Wrigley Field. And you think about all the players that have come through there and all the broadcasters that have come through there, and you're sitting more or less in the same seats, and it's kind of wild. I got a chance to go into the scoreboard at Wrigley Field a couple of years ago. I kind of just I was walking around. It was very early before a day game, and there were a couple of people up there, and so I just walked up the bleachers and I kind of poked my head up and said, "Hey, you mind if I like come up?" And they were like, "Sure, come on up." So I kind of walked up the ladder there, and they showed me around. And they showed me the tiles, and they were actually filming. I'm guessing that Jackson, you especially might have seen. They did a kind of drone video where they flew around Wrigley and like through the scoreboard and all that. They were filming it that day.
Oh my God.
I was up there with a couple of people from their production team, and they were directing, okay, remove that tile now. And so I kind of saw the behind the scenes. It was just really cool to see that view. And that's a special thing about going to all these places is you get to see the inner workings of these ballparks, like the scoreboard at Wrigley, or you go in the Monster at Fenway. And all these ballparks have such iconic, unique things about them. Some of my favorite memories from this season is going down the slide in Milwaukee, which, let me tell you, has a pretty steep angle. Like, there's a reason why they make you sign a waiver in case you get hurt, because like it's steep and you pick up some speed. The slides in San Francisco, I didn't know that the Coke bottles in San Francisco were slides until I visited that ballpark for the first time. Like, who knew?
Wow.
So I just love all these places and the things that make them special to their fan bases and getting to experience those.
Wow, that's awesome. You were there for that drone video. It was one of the
that was stroke of luck.
Yeah. Before we let you go, we just want to ask one last question, and it was just, what are you excited for the most about the Royals heading into 2024?
Well, I'm excited to see what happens at the winter meetings this week. I'm excited to see what Bobby Witt Jr.'s season looks like and how he asserts himself in a perennial all-star and MVP conversation. I'm excited to see Cole Ragans in his first full season, if he is the ace that we hope and think that he is. I'm excited to see players like Michael Massey and Michael Garcia and Vinny Pasquantino continue to take the steps forward that they continue to take. I'm excited to see Freddie Fermin do the same thing, and how that works in with Salvador Perez behind the plate or designated hitting or at first base. I'm intrigued to see what the Royals do in the bullpen. James McArthur was nails down the stretch. The dude didn't allow a run in the month of September, and I feel like we kind of just forgot about that and have written that off. Like, he did not allow a run, and that included multiple appearances against the Astros. I mean, he made Yordan Alvarez look silly a couple of times with a curveball down and in. I mean, those were among the more electric moments in the back half of the season. So, and then I'll say personally, I've been in a lot of different places in baseball, both minors and majors, and only once have I had the luxury of being in a place for a second year. That was in Omaha in 2022. That was the only time that I spent another season in the same location. And even then was a little bit different because I was bouncing back and forth between the Storm Chasers and the Mets. So it wasn't a true second year. So personally, I'm excited for a second season with the Royals because a lot of the newness, the awe is still there, but there are a lot of things, the wheels have been greased a little bit. Like when I go to spring training this year, I don't have to figure out where Surprise Stadium is. I'd never been there before. Now I know where that is. I know what the routine of that day looks like. I know the people that I'm going to see and talk to, and that goes for, the ballparks around baseball. I understand the workings of a major league day, and that takes just a little bit of weight off your shoulders in terms of things that you might be anxious about or uncertain about. And just having that level of experience too, and understanding how our radio broadcast functions. And you develop more of a rapport with Denny Matthews and Steve Stewart and Rex Hudler and Jeremy Guthrie and Mike Sweeney. And I don't get to work with Ryan Lefebvre directly all that much, but when we do, we have a great time. And so it's just another year of building, another year of getting better. And I'm really excited for year two in the major leagues. I guess the Mets fill-in games was kind of like a half year almost. I mean, I think I exhausted my rookie eligibility that season. It depends on what kind of service time you look at. But now, a full season under my belt and looking forward to year two, both on the radio side and the TV side. I think it's going to be really special.
Yeah. That's awesome. You're the rookie of the year in our vote. Jake.
Yes.
I don't think I had a ton of broadcast competition, but I'll take it.
Even better. Won it by a landslide.
Yeah.
All right. Jake Eisenberg, thank you so much. Make sure to catch him on the Raiders Royal Network and occasionally on Bally Sports KC. Is that right?
Yep.
All right. So make sure to catch that all the way from spring training to maybe some playoff games in Kansas City this year. We'll
hope so.
We'll see about that. Jake, thank you. Thank you again for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. This was fun.
Thank you.
All right. What a guy. I could not ask for a better, we could not ask for a better guest, and I cannot ask for a better mentor for broadcasting. So shout out to Jake Eisenberg. But with that, we'll debrief that conversation a little bit. But first, we got to show you some good home insurance.
Erie Insurance says here's to the grown-ups who move, mortgage, mow, and still bust a move. But does your home insurance still fit? Erie helps you protect the home you've grown into, all at fair prices that are often less than the other guys. So how do you find the right coverage? Magic. Nope. Local independent agents who get to know you like this.
Your local Erie agent is Building Block Insurance Group. Get a quote today at 704-464-4544.
Erie Insurance.
And when you contact our guy, Jeff Wartepney at mybebig.com, make sure to let him know that Jackson, Cy, and Jake Eisenberg sent you and that all three of us are better than him at Call of Duty. That was just a great conversation.
Wow.
And I saw you just tweeted, you tagged me. Yeah, I had no idea the Coke bottles had
The Coke bottles have
slides
slides
at
in it?
Oracle.
I'm supposed to be a diehard fan. I should have known that. But now I have even more reason to go to San Francisco and see if I can convince the people to go head first down the slide. Just strap a GoPro on my head and just let me dive down the slide. I won't get hurt, I promise.
They'll probably have you
No, I
sign a
don't.
waiver.
I'll sign as many waivers as I need to. I'll break a bone if it means I can say, yeah, I'm going to head first down the Coke bottle slide. You got to do it.
Yeah, that was awesome. And some of the stuff that he's done, like inside the Green Monster, inside the scoreboard at Wrigley, I seriously enjoy. Like, I want to be him when I grow up. Like,
Me too. Don't even blame you.
Oh my gosh! But again, thank you again to Jake Eisenberg for hopping on the show with us. Fantastic guest, and make sure to check out the Royals this year. They should be really, really good. But before we get into some of the winter meeting stuff, you know what it is. It's Monday.
It's time.
It's time for our favorite non-baseball segments. That's Cy's Underdog. Cy, Monday Night Football.
Hi, guys.
Jaguars, Bengals? Is that right?
Yes.
So not as good as a game as it would have been a few weeks ago, but what do you got for us tonight?
So, Jags, Bengals. Trevor Lawrence versus Jake Browning. We got ourselves I think it's going to be a shootout. So just hear me out. So Trevor Lawrence, higher than 1.5 passing touchdowns. Lock. T-Law will be throwing the ball. Bengals defense is sketchy. I expect old Captain Kirk to get a little deep ball tonight. So T-Law, higher than 1.5 passing touchdowns. Jake Browning, higher than 217.5 passing yards. You're probably looking at this, you're saying you took the higher on passing yards? Yes. In his last game, he went about 220, 225, one touchdown to one interception. Yes, it's Jake Browning. Yes, it's a backup quarterback. Yes, you're probably not expecting much from him, but I think he can throw 220, 225 again. It's gonna be a close hire. Don't get me wrong, it will be close, but gotta take the higher. I've also learned the hard way this weekend. I bet the lower, and my bets would have hit if I didn't bet the lower. So I'm retiring from betting the lower. We're not doing it anymore. We're only betting the higher. Next up, Travis Etienne, higher than a rushing touchdown. The Bengals defense is not that good. They will let up 3 touchdowns tonight, if not 4 or 5. T-Law will pass for 2. Etienne's going to probably have a 2-yard touchdown, fucking halfback dive, just right through. Easy peasy. Evan McPherson, higher than 1.5 extra points made. The Bengals can score 2 touchdowns. That's simple.
Mm-hmm.
Jaguars defense is better than it's been, but it's very easy for any NFL team. Well, actually, that's a lie.
I mean,
we
saw 6-0 game yesterday between the Chargers and Patriots. I don't know if it's that easy.
I had to think about that. But 2 average to above average football teams like the Jaguars and Bengals can score at least 2 touchdowns. And then last, Joe Mixon, higher than 71.5 rush and receiving yards. Mixon has been averaging 50 to 60 rushing yards on the ground. He is the pass-catching back with no real strong backup, so he'll catch a couple passes for 25 yards. It feels like a lock. Bet the higher, but if you are going to bet, please bet responsibly. If you notice any problems of gambling or addiction, call the numbers. Get out of that. It's not worth it. It's not worth it to go broke betting. So just please bet responsibly. Only bet $1 or $2. I think this is like a $1 leg I'm doing tonight for 25. So also I only have $1 left in my account because I'm on such a cold spell. I just need something. So we're just and my bets now. It's $1 bets until I can actually start hitting consistent bets. Because I can get 3-4 legs of the leg will hit, then somebody will get injured, or somebody will just not do good, and then it doesn't hit, and it's really sad. But that's okay though. That is okay. Tonight we change. Tonight we do the things that we need to do.
All right. Awesome as always. And now it's time. We are at the winter meetings. The hot stove is getting hotter and hotter. We've had a trade already occur during the winter meetings. We have a few other things that could potentially happen. Some free agent signings, some re-signings. Excuse me. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. Starting off the bat, pun intended, Jared Kelenic is officially an Atlanta Brave. The Braves received Marco Gonzalez, Evan White, and cash along with Kelenic, while the Mariners get Jackson Kowar, who was in that Kyle Wright trade to the Royals, along with Cole Phillips. What are the Braves up to? Because I don't like this. Because I saw the idea from Fuzzy on YouTube that the Braves could ship. This is not a rumor. This was just an idea.
Speculation.
That if the Braves move off Ozuna, they're still in on Ohtani, they could have Kelenic play left field and Ohtani be their DH and make that work somehow. So, initially, what's your reaction to the trade, and then the potential nightmare scenario where Shohei Ohtani's an Atlanta Brave?
That's not actually the nightmare scenario that I'm thinking about. So I think it was either Ken Rosenthal or John Morosi came out today and said Marco Gonzalez will not be a Brave for long. They're going to ship him off in a future deal. Probably, your nightmare might be Shohei Ohtani, which is a nightmare because Alex Antonopoulos is going to sign him 10 years, $200 million because duh. But the nightmare scenario is Marco Gonzalez is probably going to be the headliner. Marco Gonzalez and some prospects probably going to go to Chicago for Dylan Cease. And that's the nightmare. Marco Gonzalez, former Cardinal. We traded him to get Tyler O'Neill, which is ironic. We'll get to that later. But it feels like it just really feels like they're cooking something. They're going to either swing. They're going to take a big swing on Shohei, or they're going to take a big swing on one of the starting pitchers, or just maybe even another outfield bat. Like, I don't even know. Because I've seen the same Ozuna speculation. Ozuna is trending on Twitter right now, which it's
not good.
Not good. So, I don't know. It's very interesting to see what's going to happen. They also had to take on Evan White's contract, but knowing the Braves, he's going to be a key bench piece for them this year. Kelenic was arguably had his best season so far in 2023. Yes, he hasn't been good in the past, but the Braves, with Kelenic, Acuna, and Michael Harris in that outfield, lethal. That also means, as a fact, Eddie Rosario is not coming back, which I think is notable. So, man, I don't know, but it's scary to an extent because the Braves are going to brave and they're going to make the NLDS and lose in 5. So, am I really worried? No. They'll lose in the NLDS. They can do what they want to do until they actually can get past the NLDS and not crybaby about it. Then well.
Just or I don't know if I want to consider it a report, but some speculation from Dan Clark. I'm not sure where he's out of. He says he's a content creator and he runs his own website called The Daily. So take this with a grain of salt, saying that the Ohtani field has expanded to 2 more teams with the Giants and the Braves. Decision expected within 72 hours. And that was posted an hour ago. So we could see Ohtani sign this week. So we'll keep an eye out on that. But he's not the only megastar who could be on the move. Juan Soto is looking like that he could be heading to the Yankees, but things have currently stalled out because according to John Heyman of the New York Post, that the sides haven't talked since San Diego requested 6 or 7 players, included Drew Thorpe and Michael King, for Soto and Trent Grisham. Athletics Brandon Cootie said that it was potentially 8 players, including Clark Schmidt, Johnny Brito, and Randy Vasquez, including King and Thorpe. And that Oswald Peraza and Everson Pereira could also be on the table to be sent to San Diego.
I've heard even Volpe is in the mix too.
you can't give up Volpe if you're the
You
Yankees.
cannot give up
Maybe
Volpe.
Jason Dominguez because you're giving up an out. But if you're giving up Volpe
But if
or
you're
Dominguez,
giving up Dominguez and
you're
Pereira, you
guaranteed
can't
an
do that.
extension. You're guaranteed an extension with Soto at that point. Because remember, he's only got 1 year left, and then he'll be a free agent. And I don't think he has arbitration either. So, this was when I first saw this, I thought it was like the Yankees screwing it up because like they're not willing to trade like Michael King for Juan Soto and Trent Grisham. Like, what are they doing? And then see
Trent Grisham drops the volume significantly, which I mean, it's crazy enough though. He would be the fourth. Grisham would be the fourth outfielder. If not, he would probably start in center field. But since like
Judge, don't have Judge is in right. Put Soto
would
left.
be in left.
And
it would be Grisham in center because Bader. It was Harrison Bader, but they traded him. Now he's a free agent. They have Florial, but I mean they've messed with him so much.
So they would basically just trading for 2 starting outfielders,
basically.
But still, 6 players. I know Soto's good, like great.
6 players is crazy, and they're all 6 players at significant value. That's like all of the Yankees.
It looks like the entire like pitching farm system.
Yep.
For the Yankees. So
and the Yankees are already lacking as is in the pitching department.
Yeah, because I mean, was it Shamanaya? Wasn't that good? Or no, not Shamanaya. Rodon wasn't that good, but there was someone they got from the A's last year.
Frankie Montas. He was injured, and now now I'm pretty sure he's a free agent now.
And then Nestor Cortez wasn't that good this year.
Injured.
So
Clark Schmidt was okay.
Garrett Cole.
Michael King was originally a reliever because of all the injuries and how decimated they were. Michael King got flipped into a starter and found success. Johnny Brito came up and made some starts, but he got roughed up every time. Still got Clayton Beater, still got Drew Thorpe. Like they got prospects that would come up, but Yankees just need depth. They just need literally just simply a couple arms because, as we'll mention in a little bit, they lost one of their starters already to free agency.
Yeah, so I understand the Yankees' hesitation, even for players great as Juan Soto, and getting another starting outfielder in Trent Grisham, but you can't give up your entire pitching farm for it when you're not guaranteed to get Juan Soto to sign an extension.
But I will say, if the Yankees keep playing around like they are, the Blue Jays are intrigued. The Blue Jays may have an offer already out to Soto. And it would be poetic as all can be if the Yankees are sitting here playing their food and then the Blue Jays metaphorically swoop down and steal Soto.
Yeah, they're still in on Ohtani as well. They're not going to get both, but they could get one.
They'll get one.
For the Yankees, they want to get Soto because I think they're also trying to get Cody Bellinger.
And they're trying. I think they're still in on Yamamoto too.
Yeah, and I mean, if you can get Juan Soto and Cody Bellinger for your outfield, and get Trent Grisham as like your fourth, that outfield is ridiculous. Where you could have Grisham play left occasionally and have Soto DH, or have Soto play left. So it's interesting. I think I'm sad that the Cubs really aren't in on Juan Soto, but at the same time, we're basically full sending it for Ohtani, and we'll figure out the rest later, which I fully respect. I fully respect that. But Juan Soto isn't the only potential left fielder to be traded because the Tampa Bay Rays are doing their normal thing of trying to trade their star players. We'll get to another one later, but Randy Arozarena could potentially be on the move as well. The former St. Louis Cardinal and now potentially former Tampa Bay Ray.
I just had to bring that up.
You know I had to. What's the title of the show? You had
to first Ivy. I know it was coming. I knew it was.
So, I haven't been able to see like what teams potentially would be interested in Arozarena. I think a perfect fit, since they just traded Kelenic, send him to the Mariners.
That's what
the Mariners. Randy Arozarena and Julio Rodriguez in the same outfield and lineup would be nasty. Like, don't get me wrong, Arozarena is not the greatest defensive left fielder. I think he's got like -6 outs above average, which isn't good. But just from a hitting standpoint alone, of having Julio Rodriguez and Randy Arozarena in the same lineup, like that team is competing with Texas and Houston again for the AL West.
And that is the number one team that I've seen rumored to land Arozarena if he were to get moved, would be the Mariners, because the Rays and Mariners already trade partners as is. They made trades countless times before. So, I mean, it's really the only move that's really the only place I can see Randy getting moved off the top of my head. Just nowhere else I can just see. Like, I don't know who would swoop in and try to get that, because he's got value on his name. You got to give up a little bit for him. So
yeah, let's see. I'm looking right now. It's funny enough. I just started looking at this. It's Royals Review, and they actually threw out a couple of trade offers for Randy Arozarena.
Hey, I'm not gonna say no to that.
Let's see.
Trade Edward Olivares.
Yeah, it looks like yesterday, the Tampa Bay's outfielders, if he's going to move, the Seattle Mariners might be the potential landing spot, according to John Morosi. They've also spoken about Isaac Paredes. So that's what it's looking like. Like, this could potentially basically be a three-way trade between the Braves, Mariners, and Rays, where the Rays get Arozarena. The other trade already happened, and then or even 4, because if the White Sox want to give Dylan Cease to them, to the Braves. That's an interesting one, Braden. I didn't think about the Diamondbacks, but they already have Lourdes Gurriel. That outfield's kind of loaded as
unless
you trade Alec Thomas.
No, it would be Jake McCarthy. That's like their third/fourth outfielder.
Yeah, because he's in right field, right?
He's projected to start right now. I swear, Lourdes. I saw Gurriel as a free agent. No, that's Teo.
That's Teoscar Hernandez.
I'm slow.
But yeah, so I could see that work. I don't know how they would feel about Gurriel in right field, or maybe they throw Arozarena in right field. They've been trade partners before, obviously, for Paul Sewell. So
you're thinking Mariners and Diamondbacks.
DH, maybe, but I figured you want to throw somebody else in the DH spot if you're the Diamondbacks. But
I don't know.
We'll see. But we're going to continue on the left fielder train, or at least outfielder train, because you know what? I'm not even going to say it. You can just go ahead and say it. So I'm going to let you cook, because I got the next one.
All right. So you read this headline. It says Cardinals GM listening to offers on Tyler Neal. John Mozeliak came out this morning. This is a man. Press conference says his stuff. You know. For Cardinals fans know who are tuned into this. John Mozeliak does not name drop players who he's going to trade, ever. That is not who he is. That's not what he does. You know who got name dropped this morning? Tyler O'Neill. That means, as a fact, he's gone. There's no other way to put it. Because, he racked off what this offense is going to look like. Mentioned how the outfield's looking like it's going to be Lars Nootbaar, Tommy Edman, and Jordan Walker as starters, with Carlson as the fourth outfielder. And it specifically goes, we're listening to trade offers on Tyler O'Neill. Him and Mozeliak have a little bit of bad blood. They're on the greatest terms. But O'Neill has value. He is a power bat with Gold Glove defense. Health is a little bit of an issue. Contract wise, he's making, I think, like $4 million. Like, he's not making that much. A little bit of a strikeout problem, but it has dropped significantly since he's came into the league. And there are teams like a Seattle or a Cleveland who could use a bat in Tyler O'Neill. So
right.
It's it's a matter of time for O'Neal to be moved. I'm just hoping it's gonna be for a significant package or like something like of significance. So like when I'm reading a lot of is some sort of starting pitcher, relief pitcher prospect who could either be MLB ready or who would go into our top 10 or 15 prospects. So fingers crossed that we get something decent. Or we use O'Neal in a package to get a big name starter or a big name reliever.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what the Cardinals do. I mean, personally for me, and this is gonna sound dumb because it is. I would personally not want Tyler O'Neill because even though in MLB The Show he's a 90-something overall, dude.
Oh, here he goes.
Hit for crap.
Oh, here he goes.
He was a 95 and he was hitting like 225.
I know.
And so I traded his ass for Kyle Tucker, and I won like 3 World Series. So
good.
Maybe the Cardinals win 3 World Series if they trade Tyler O'Neill for Kyle Tucker. Maybe if they
or maybe Tyler O'Neill becomes the second coming of Jesus because that's what happens when Cardinals outfielders leave St. Louis. Adolis Garcia, Randy Arozarena, Lane Thomas,
Marcelo Zuna.
No. Don't say his name around there. That should be a banned word.
Okay, Ozuna. Because you said a word.
Neither. Don't say either word.
Okay.
Sore subject. We would have Zach Gallen and St. Alcantara still was for Marcelo Ozuna.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Alrighty, let's see. Next rumor is that this is from Mr. Bruce Levine. Before I talk about this part, he also said that he's at the winter meetings. He said that the Cubs are doubtful to re-sign Cody Bellinger, which I don't know how I feel about that, depending on how things go.
Talking about Cody Bellinger, this is a rumor. I don't know if it's true, but it's an update on Cody Bellinger. Cody Bellinger is asking in excess of $250 million per Bob Nightingale of USA Today. Yeah,
he's not getting that. He's
gonna get 175 at most.
Maybe 200. 200, like 225 is my max. There's no way he's getting 250 plus. He had one good year after 3 bad years. Like, I love Cody Bellinger, but
I know you do.
Like, no, I would not pay $250 million for Cody Bellinger. Like, at 175 or 200, I'm okay with that. That's obviously the Cubs have a ton of money, but you still want to get other pieces besides Cody Bellinger.
Excuse me.
You don't know how he's going to play next year. Is he going to go back to 2021 Dodgers Cody Bellinger, or is he going to be 2023 second half Cubs Cody Bellinger? So, yeah, 250 plus is outrageous. But in other news, the Cubs, at least Bruce Levine, expects that could get a deal done. Most likely will get a deal done for Tyler Glasnow from the Tampa Bay Rays, another star player, potentially on the move from Tampa Bay. This is the perfect number 2 behind Justin Steele. Justin Steele is a ground ball pitcher, gets a few strikeouts. Tyler Glasnow would be a top 5 like stuff pitcher in Cubs history. The velocity he has on his fastball, I think he has like a nasty curveball and slider.
He does.
He would be a top 5, like just pure stuff to ever put on a Cubs uniform if and potentially when this deal gets done. I don't know what it's going to take, but you throw him in at number 2. You got Jameson Taillon at number 3, Kyle Hendricks as your 4, Jordan Wicks as your 5. It would be potentially how the rotation looks. Maybe Javier Assad in there, but he may have to be traded as part of this package. So I would still want to add another starter to maybe push Kyle Hendricks to that 5 spot. But I still think Kyle Hendricks was still solid last year. I think he had just under a 4 ERA last year, and Jameson Tyone looked really good in the second half of last year. So I would be okay with that rotation, but I would still want to add another starting pitcher on top of Glass now. It doesn't have to be, I like to say, another star guy, but someone who's at least solid. Maybe you bring back Marcus Stroman. He's your 3, Tyone's your 4, and Hendricks is your 5. So those are my thoughts, at least on Tyler Glass now, potentially. And I would say 80% probably becoming a Chicago Cub.
I feel really confident about that, but we'll just have to wait and see. Minor news, just announced free agent pitcher Joe Ross, Milwaukee Brewers are in agreement of a major league contract pending physical, according to sources. Inning ear, it's Joe Ross. Joe Ross hasn't been that good the past couple of years.
Yeah.
But it's for an inning eater. We need to replace, you need to get innings that Woodruff would have had for them. So, is what it is. And then outside of that, Phillies have extended manager Rob Thompson to the 2025 season. Needed, necessary. Saw that coming. So, I didn't insert that real quick.
Yeah. And it's funny that you bring up the Brewers because holy crap. They signed their top prospect, Jackson Chourio, to one of the biggest contracts, probably, I think, the biggest contract for a guy who has never played an MLB game. According to sources to ESPN, it is a 8-year, $82 million contract with 2 club options and escalators that could take the deal to $142.5 million. That is per Jeff Passan of ESPN. Chourio, and here's just some background. Chourio, a Venezuelan native who signed with the Brewers 2 years ago as a 16-year-old, spent 2023 in AA. He hit 280, 336, 467, 22 home runs, and he is currently ranked as the number 3 prospect by ESPN. That's insane. For a guy who's never played an MLB game, giving him just over $10 million a season is wild.
It's crazy because the Brewers don't got anything else to use their money on. They aren't using on Woodruff. They aren't using on Corbin Burns. They're not using on Willie Adames. So it makes sense, and that's kind of sad. But good for Chourio.
It's all right, bros. It's all right.
You
can watch it back later. It was great. It was right at the beginning of the show, but we'll make sure you get in there.
But God, here he goes again. There he goes again. It's not gonna happen. He's going to LA. Anyways,
oh my gosh,
it's good that Jackson Chourio has all this money.
Oh no!
Because you know what he can use it on?
Oh no!
Some good old W Energy. So, for those of y'all who don't know, W Energy was formulated to give you focus and energy with no jitters or crash. Our formula contains vitamins, amino acids, and non-tropics, including the patented neurofactor. W contains no calories, no sugars, no maltodextrin, no fillers, and no artificial colors. It's all natural. It's going to keep you awake. It's going to keep you buzzing. You aren't going to crash. And with somebody that now has more money than he knows what to do with, he can use this money on some good old W Energy. And he can get a fantastic discount using our code Third on Thursdays for 10% off. As always, thank you to W for sponsoring us. Use our codes. Hook up your family or your dog. Don't hook up your dog with W Energy. I don't know what would happen there. But just thank you, W. Use our code, and thank you. I agree. This is my cup of tea. I always find something different every week. But yeah, good for Chourio to get the bag. It will be I like the 2 club options that are sprinkled in there because if for some reason he's not doing good, the Brewers can be like, yeah, no, we're not doing this. But also, he's only getting what, 10 million ish a year.
Yeah.
Yes, incentives can bring it up more, but like 10 million base pay for someone who's projected to be like an absolute star, it's cool with me. Yep. Every week, Bruce. Every week, Bruce. I make a dog transition just to remind people don't give it to animals.
Oh my god! But yeah, I agree. And this, once he gets up to the major league level, this gives the Brewers a really good outfield if he pans out. Christian Yelich,
Mm-hmm.
Jackson Chourio,
Mm-hmm.
and a combination of Sal Frelick and I think Garrett Mitchell. I think that's it.
Sal Frelick is so good.
So
I hate that he's a Brewer. I actually really like Sal Frelick. But yes, no, that's then when Yelich ages out, they'll probably have some other random Dominican kid that'll come up. Like it's maybe but it's okay. They're gonna suck for like the next 4 years, so like it's fine. Yelich is not getting a ring ever, and that's cool with me. Sorry, Christian Yelich. I don't mean it.
All right. Speaking of the Brewers, they keeping pretty busy. They are potentially close on re-signing Wade Miley. Solid dev piece, another innings eater. He seems to only do really good with the Brewers, so this is a match made in heaven for the two of them. And then one last thing on the Brewers, there hasn't been anything from their side of things, but the Dodgers are potentially looking to improve their shortstop position, even with Gavin Lux coming back. And one of the names mentioned was current Brewers shortstop Willy Adames. Outside of our fan interest in seeing Willy Adames no longer with the Brewers, I think would be a good spot for him to go. It's a lineup that's absolutely loaded. He won't be asked upon to be one of these star guys. Not that he can't be. I just don't think he ever reached that upper echelon that we were hoping for. He was in like the really, really good, but he wasn't necessarily the great, I think is the best way to put it.
Yes.
But yeah, so I think this would be a good spot for him to go. I'm not sure what the trade compensation would look like on either end, but I think he would be good for the Dodgers to get Adames.
I would think Dodgers would send over Michael Busch and one of their mid-tier starting pitching prospects.
Yeah.
Michael Busch is ML ready and Major League ready. He can play those middle infield spots. And then I can't think of any of their pitching prospects. Maybe like a Gavin Stone maybe would come over, or like an Emmett Sheehan. Like there's names that Dodgers could give up for Adames. Maybe like instead of Bush, Miguel Vargas could be in there, but I just don't know if that would happen. It'd have to be one of the younger middle infield pieces that are basically MLB Major League ready because they have like 4 or 5. It's kind of crazy, but for the sake of Willy Adames leaving the NL Central, good for Willy Adames. For the sake of the Dodgers getting better, no thanks.
Right.
Best way to put it.
Quick couple of recaps for some recent free agent signings. Luis Severino takes the subway from the Yankees to the Mets to Citi Field. Should be interesting to see if he can rebound because he was really good a couple of years ago. I think he's only like 27 or 28 years old. So plenty of time for him to,
I believe.
29. Plenty of time for him to right the ship. Another NL Central happenings. Nick Martinez signs with the Reds. That was Michael Wacha who had the 2-year team option. He switches from San Diego to Cincinnati. Good fourth or fifth starter or long reliever for the Reds.
I follow some Reds beat writers because the Reds are a very interesting team to me. I don't know why, but he's projected he's going to be their 5th starter / swingman, and that is exactly what the Reds needed. By everything I keep hearing, is they need a 5th starter swingman type of role to get, I think, Brandon Williamson either out of the rotation or back into rotation. But that team's going to be
if they trade for a
they're
starter,
gonna have Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, Andrew Abbott confirmed as their 1 through 3. Nick Martinez as a 5, maybe like a Brandon Williamson as their 4. They still have Justin Dunn. Like, they got names.
yeah,
And they're all young. And that's scary.
If they could get like a vet, like 3 or 4 level pitcher, I think they're really in business to do something big this year. So, last little re-signing before we get into some other bigger news is that the Dodgers have re-signed Joe Kelly after he was part of the Lance Lynn trade from the White Sox. Again, another guy who always just seems to play well with one team, and that's the Dodgers. He wasn't as great as he usually was last year, but I think back in LA, back where he's comfortable, I think he'll be in a really good spot. So, big news. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, I believe this was either Morosi or Heyman, maybe it was Rosenthal, one of those 3 guys, said that Yoshinobu Yamamoto will meet with teams within the next week, and we'll see what potential decision comes of that. Nothing on which teams could be in that mix. The Cubs have been heavily linked to him. The Cardinals have been heavily
St. Louis.
linked to him. Hey, I said it.
Thank you.
I wasn't going to leave him out. The Yankees have been in on it. I think the Giants have been in on him. So it's going to be, just like Shohei Ohtani, it's going to be a bidding war for the best free agent coming over from Japan. Are you looking where?
Got a little bit of little Cubs tidbit moves.
Okay.
It's not really a move, it's more of like a rumor, but according to by Robert Murray, Chicago's president of baseball operations, Jed Hoyer is being active behind the scenes trying to make moves. Remain patient. Jed is definitely talking a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff with Jed doesn't leak. And an hour before this came out, report came out that you mentioned about they're very in on Glass now, and they're still interested in bringing back Bellinger. And still extremely in on Ohtani. I don't like anything that just came out of my mouth. I'm looking on Twitter, right? And I see sports trending. Cubs, Glasnow. And I said, I should probably look at this. And happy I did. Because goodness.
If the Cubs brought all those 3 guys in,
I'm gonna have a seizure.
They're winning the NL Central.
I'm having a seizure right now.
I don't care. They are winning the NL Central with the combination of Bellinger, Ohtani, and Britton Glass. Imagine next year, that rotation would be. I'm not sure how long Glasnow's under contract, but
1 year.
Okay, so they have to re-sign him next year. Yep. Let's say theoretically they re-sign him. Steele, Ohtani, Glasnow, Tyone, Jordan Wicks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, Wade Miley has officially been signed 1 year deal with the Brewers.
Okay.
So the Brewers signed him and right-hand pitcher Joe Ross in the same day. 2 back-end guys. Yep, 2 back-end guys, but Wade Miley is a 4 that's going to perform like a 3 because he's with Milwaukee.
Yep.
Joe Ross is realistically a 5/swingman, but Brewers decided to wake up. And that means the Cardinals and the Cubs and the Reds and the Pirates are going to wake up. Actually, the Pirates have woken up just a little bit. They're in on Jack Flaherty. If Jack Flaherty wants a shorter-term deal, they want him. Jack Flaherty, however, is very much searching for a longer-term deal. Something to note, something to keep an eye on, because, I don't know, that's going to be really hard for me to cheer for Jack Flaherty in a Pirates uniform.
That would, at least personality-wise, I think that would suit him. And I think he, honestly, he would look good. I think he matches, in a Pirates
him and Mitch
uniform.
Keller together are... Yeah. Him, Mitch Keller, Ronzi Contreras. That's all I have to say.
Yep. That's a nice little 1, 2, 3
that's
right
a nice
there.
Little 1, 2, 3.
And again, the Pirates won 74 games this year, so that could bump them a few wins if things go their way.
And they get O'Neal Cruz back?
Who knows? But I think that's all the big news we got. But before we go, as always, we have to bring in one of our favorite people of all time, and his name is Mr. Card Guy. Great show, Cy. That was awesome. Again, thank you again to Jake Eisenberg for hopping on with us. Cannot begin to thank him enough for that. That was an incredible interview. Learned a lot of stuff about his journey to the Kansas City Royals and some of the cool stuff he's gotten to do at some of his favorite MLB ballparks. Cyan, if you've been looking at our Twitter, we're already planning our road trip to San Francisco to go down the slides, the Coca-Cola bottles.
Yup.
So we'll keep you updated if that ever happens. But
hey, once we get these actual credentials for the MLB, I think we can do whatever we want to do.
We'll see. Maybe the Cubs will actually let me go, and the Cardinals will actually let you do things. So
I'll be with the minor league team, so hopefully
step in the right direction. But
yep.
That's going to do it for us. By the time next week rolls around, there'll probably some big stuff that will happen
100%
by the next time we talk. So thank you again to everyone who watching and commented. I think it's probably one of our most viewed episodes, and I can obviously see why. But again, one more time, thank you to Jake Eisenberg, the voice of the Kansas City Royals on radio for the Kansas City Royals Radio Network. Also fills in occasionally on TV for Bally Sports KC. So if you're in that area or if you have MLB TV, please watch him or listen to him. Fantastic voice, fantastic person. Just overall awesome. So,
yes.
Cy, anything else before we wrap up?
Quick shout out to Blooper. He just tweeted something out, which I think is really funny. It's about football. About Jets want to start Zach Wilson again, but they're reluctant to.
Mm-hmm.
And Blooper came out and retweeted and goes, Braves are reporting that Blooper is reluctant to hop on a diet, but are hoping to change his mind. And reluctant is in air quotations. And it's Blooper, and Blooper is just funny, and I love Blooper. And I mean, might not like the Braves that much, but Blooper is could be my best friend if you want it to be. So, shout out Blooper.
Oh my gosh. Well, that is a perfect note to end this show on. We'll be back next week recapping the latest in MLB winter meetings. I think they'll be over by that point, and we'll probably know where Shohei Ohtani and Cody Bellinger and some of the other big pieces are going to be. So,
to the St. Louis Cardinals.
Until next time, we'll see ya.